research this morning on the overdose deaths, and it's kids from 16 all the way up to adult. Welcome to a community conversation. My name is Jason Bannon. I'm a Wallingford resident, and I'm here with Sylvester Salcido. This is a continuation of a conversation that we just had. So I know you were talking about CHU and having people come, and to me that's a lot like the methadone model, and to me that's like a prison sentence. I can't get by this clean heroin thing.
The clean heroin, it really, all it is when you think about it, right? If you went to Colombia, you could buy a pound or a kilo, 2.2 pounds of pure heroin, let's say, and that's what's shipped over here. And if we are allowed to just go to UPS, FedEx overnight, and send that to Wallingford, right? It probably costs us like $200 in overnight shipping. But because the cartels have to ship it here, the original $2,000 cost for that package of kilo, 2.2 pounds of heroin, if it was $2,000, by the time you got here to Wallingford through the cartels, it would be $92,000 because they'd have to pay $90,000 in bribes to various immigration and customs official. They might even have to kill somebody along the way, so that adds another $25,000. So it's ridiculous, right? Mm-hmm. But if you think of that concept of just shipping the 1 kilo of pure unadulterated heroin, powdered heroin, to a pharmaceutical, we've got plenty of pharmaceutical companies here in Connecticut, and you convert it. And again, you can package it so that you can have the pharmacist label it, sort of a basic level strength heroin, a medium strength, a higher, more potent strength, and then through doctors, they will be the ones to determine what their clients would be prescribed. And it's not like you're doing heroin and putting it up at the shelves at Stop and Shop or ShopRite. It's through the medical system rather than law enforcement. That was my point.
And I understand that, but it's still the point of you have to pay for that heroin, and then you're going to give it to people who use heroin for nothing. So where does it stop? So then do we give people who are alcoholics free booze?
No, we don't have the crisis. We don't have a Budweiser crisis here. Right? I'm just thinking.
There is a lot of that.
Well,
we're focused on. We're focused on the opioid crisis,
right?
But substance abuse in general has exploded,
right?
And unfortunately, opioid kill people, but so does a detox from alcohol or even benzodiazepines.
No.
Or something.
I don't deny any of those, but as I said, I was hoping in this sharing this wonderful conversation with you is just an idea of, again, keeping in sight our target zero so that we would have no one die of an unfortunate heroin overdose incident in the state of Connecticut for the rest of the year or forever.
And I would hope in this conversation too that we could maybe chip away at the stigma and.
Oh yeah, I'm on board.
Even though I don't agree 100% with it, I'm open to whatever. I mean, I would have said to you, convince me that this is the way to go.
In terms mentally, it's difficult to wrap your head around this concept of, it's legal heroin and it's pure, it's pharmaceutical grade, and we can get it from France or Canada or Switzerland. And I'm saying to myself, why can't we produce it right here? Under limited, and again, very tightly controlled, like anything else. Yeah. In the same way we're controlling Percocet. In the same way we're controlling methadone, actually, right? Because methadone, I know from, again, I don't have first-hand experience, but from what other people tell me, narratives, is that sometimes they can be given extra dosage over the weekend when the clinic is not open.
They have take-home bottles.
Right, take-home bottles. So, but then again, you don't really know with this take-home bottles. You hear other stories where, the patients themselves sell it to other people who need it because then they can take the money to buy real heroin in the streets. So that's what I'm saying. I should have pointed out to you, the $10 bag of heroin, $5 bag of heroin, $3 bag of heroin that are in the streets of anywhere, Wallingford, New Haven, Bridgeport, Hartford, anywhere, that's only worth 10 cents, right? So think about it, a $10 bag of something that's only worth 10 cents, somebody is making $9.90 in profit.
supply and demand, Sylvester. It's like
No, I know that, but why would we force our fellow Connecticut residents to purchase something for $10 when we know it can be offered to them at 10 cents?
But right now, it's an illegal substance.
I know it's an illegal substance.
It's an illegal
But
substance.
it's the same thing. Think back to our history in the United States. Alcohol, because of all the social problems, which are legitimate, right? You had all these ladies, the ladies who lobbied Congress and said, listen, alcohol is devastating our society. You had a lot of these immigrant workers come in, and they'd have 18 children per family, work like a dog in a factory, and then on their way home with their salary, they'd stop by every saloon, and by the time they got home, they have 10 cents in their pocket, and you have 18 hungry children to feed. And that's why we made alcohol illegal in this country. But yet we went through another painful phase where you basically had prohibition and people abused it. You had the speakeasies. People really, it's just generally in our societal culture that people will just basically look the other way and money will be made. And that's how you get all the criminal organizations developed. Al Capone, right? Because people still wanted it and they would do it in secret. So then when you went, the pendulum swung the other way again and you abolish prohibition, now you don't see the Budweiser delivery truck driving around Wallingford making his deliveries with an AK-47 on his passenger seat, because beer is regulated and it's for a price that's affordable relatively for people, right? And when there's a higher supply, Super Bowl time, the beer factories will produce more beers to meet the demand. But and then of course, yes, you do have the DUIs, you have the car accidents, but you do also have a wraparound education, reminders, don't drink and drive, and even societal, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they're reacting to a particular set of societal issues that need to be addressed. And these are all legitimate. But the key is, we want to know, you and I were initially starting this conversation about target zero. How do we get Connecticut to have zero heroin overdose or opioid-related overdose deaths? And to me, as I said, this is just one way to do it. If you look at the amount of money that's being spent versus the amount of money that could be saved, and also making it healthier. Because as I said, if the Yale doctors are right, and it's about 105,000 Connecticut residents are affected by opioids, either in recovery, completely sober, or still actively using. Whether we use 33,000 as our starting point of people who are still using it, let's get those 33,000 out of their secret lives. Go to folks like you. Go to, there are 10,000 members of the Connecticut Bar Association, right? If there are 33,000 opioid users, I propose to the president of the Connecticut Bar Association and say, why don't we have every lawyer in Connecticut take on 3 pro bono clients, 3 of these opioid-dependent individuals, in whatever town you're in. Just say, as part of my give back to the society, to Connecticut society as an attorney, I will be the basically attorney for these 3 individuals. And you guide them through this whole system, and you provide them with connection through the network counselors. And the key is to keep them alive and to keep them away from engaging in crime. But of course, we would have to change. Like, we would almost practically have the same laws that we have for the casinos, right? That would be like Connecticut would be a drug tolerant zone in the United States of America. And we could just try that out like prohibition. Let's try it out for a year. Let's try it out for 3 years and see how it works.
Well, I'm more of a prevention, education, treatment guy, but I'm open to a lot of different
I agree.
things.
But see that? Yeah, go ahead.
There's a lot of people who it's very difficult for them to get sober, and they want to get sober or clean or in recovery. Okay. And what you're proposing is kind of, to me, it's kind of against that, because you're still gonna provide them with heroin, and society is not, as a whole, are not going to get behind that. They're
No,
ju-
Jason, I don't think we should lose the point. I'm not saying that all 100,000 of these opioid affected individuals that were identified by the doctors from Yale School of Public Health and Yale Medical School. I'm not saying let them have this sort of open plate and just say, hey, come help yourself. No.
Okay.
What we're doing is, as I said, go to the individual
Yeah.
and ask them in a nice, welcoming, very friendly tone. It's not like, oh, you want to get well, right? We want to say, hey, let's talk to you in the most open, non-threatening, non-judgmental way. Just say, hey, in an ideal world, what would you really like to do? To just stabilize yourself, so you're not stealing, you're not prostituting yourself, you're not lying to your mom or your girlfriend or your wife, or you know what I mean. Just what will it take? And if they say, I really want rehab, well then that's what we will try to, instead of wasting money on buying Narcan for every first responder in Connecticut, take that Narcan money of Governor Malloy and put it towards this program.
I don't see Narcan as a waste of money either. I actually have 5 doses in my car right now because you just never know.
Okay.
They're going to need more of that. So from like a dollars and cents point, I know you're not a big you're not against it, but not a big proponent of, like Governor Malloy rolling out the Narcan.
Right,
to
right.
all the EMTs and
Right.
the paramedics and,
Right.
and police and fire departments and all that.
Right.
But to me, it's kind of like a fire extinguisher. I'd rather have it and not have to use it than
Right.
need it and not have it. And yes, the price has gone up because it's supply and demand. This is America,
Right.
supply and demand. So
Well-
the price has gone up.
I hear the point you made.
Like
I understand. I mean, I could bring 100 Narcans in my briefcase around, but the chances of me realistically running into somebody who will have an overdose is almost none, really. And I am the PTO president of the John C. Daniels School in New Haven, where across the street
Right.
is APT Foundation, one of the largest methadone clinics in all of New Haven. And in fact, we've had incidents where we've had some of their clients basically collapse on our school grounds. But I'm not there, right? And even though they come every morning and our school children and our staff see them, again, their lives really is almost not interconnected to our lives as an elementary school, and yet we're across the street from each other. So, to me, again, as I said, wouldn't it be better your 5 doses of Narcan that you have on you right now as you're driving around? Wouldn't those be more effective if they were positioned in a clinic where the 33,000 active users of opioids and heroins today go every morning and every afternoon to have a dose of what they need to stabilize, not to be party animals, but just so that they don't what they call dope sick, right? Because I think from what I hear in this population, what they after the partying phase is over, what they really dislike the most is the sensation
Right.
of the withdrawal symptoms.
Yes, back
right.
pain.
Exactly.
All the withdrawal symptoms,
Exactly.
which is absolutely horrific. To
Correct,
witness
and that's
someone
what
go
and that's
through.
what drives them to get the heroin, and that's what drives them to do anything, to commit crimes, to sell their children, to do you know what I mean? To violate every societal norm.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. That's the point where I would like to meet them, or the Chew philosophy outlook would like to meet them and say, hey, you don't have to engage in criminality. You don't have to abandon your children. You don't have to steal grandma's Social Security check. What you have to do is just sign up with the Connecticut Heroin Users Union. We will embrace you with tolerance, empathy, and acceptance. And again, we're not saying take heroin for the rest of your life. That's ridiculous. That's not a desirable philosophy. Really, what it is we want to keep an eye on target zero. We want you not to be dead tomorrow or next week or by the end of this year.
And what I'm hearing you say too is it's a kind of treatment, but I don't know any other thing that we treat with the same substance that is killing a person.
I mean, I'm not a pharmacologist or a physician, but I don't think it's the heroin that kills them, but I think what kills them is the pressure, the sort of criminality around having to take it. But as I said, I mean, I have these attorney friends who have to take insulin, right? So they run around the courthouse, they have a special bag with the syringes. Sometimes we have dinner together, and they just do their shot right there before dessert comes, and nobody thinks anything because that person needs insulin,
Right.
and it's a quick shot, and it's all done, in a very clinical way, and they have all the proper ways to dispose or restore their syringes and use needles, and it's not just sort of thrown on the sidewalk after they use it. That's sort of the same concept, I believe. Again, in practice, I watch two areas: the safe injection room in Frankfurt, Germany, one in Amsterdam, and then the one up in Vancouver in Canada. And to me, you go through that, walking through and talking to the staff, it's just an amazing, when I went to see this first safe injection room in Germany, I asked this young 25-year-old something German social worker, and I said, Fräulein Schmidt, an American, I said, my first question was, well, how many people have you lost to an overdose death? And she looked at me like I was crazy. She goes, 9. It's just never. And that's not to say they won't have 2, sometimes 4 overdose incidents per day.
Right.
In that clinic. But yet nobody dies because they don't have to grab a $94 Narcan dose, or if you and I buy it, I think it's now $174 a dose. They grab a $2 plastic breathing tube from the wall. They lay the guy down or the woman down in the middle of the floor. They stick the breathing tube and they artificial breathe, because basically, I never knew this, but they explained it to me. When you hit the overdose level, the heroin basically makes your lung muscles just so relaxed that they just go to sleep and not breathe for you. So you're not getting oxygen to your brain, and you turn blue. And in the United States of America, everybody panics and runs away. Whereas over there, they just very calmly, methodically, just say, okay, this guy hit the overdose zone, and they grab that tube, and they just artificial. And in 30, 40 seconds, the guy's, eyelids start to flutter, and then he says, oh, I screwed up. I got over, well, because they never know how potent that the street heroin that they got that morning, whether it's stronger than yesterday's dose that they bought, they never know. So that's why they're prepared, and there's a protocol, and it's safe, and it's clean, and you don't spread diseases, and most of all, the whole Frankfurt society, from the police. I mean, the police, they drive around there and they see somebody at the train station who looks like they just came from out of town and they look scraggly. They go up to the guy and they say, do you need help? And if it's heroin, they put the guy in the back seat, nice and warm, drive him to the clinic, and say, go talk to Fräulein Schmidt over there. And if you haven't eaten, they'll give you food. If your clothes haven't been cleaned, there's a washing machine in the basement. If you haven't had a nap, take a shower and go take a warm nap before you come back down, and we'll talk to you. I mean, totally different. Here, you get grabbed by the police, they stomp on your neck and say, isn't this like the 15th time we've arrested you this summer, right? It's a totally different approach. So anyway, that's all I'm saying.
Unfortunately, I know some people that got sober that way.
Well,
by going to prison. And
no,
listen,
no,
I
understand
don't think that everybody who uses a substance should go to prison and rot in jail, because that's not right. That's not the way it
you
should
hear
be.
that, but you see, here's the thing. If you look at the statistics, it's only 10% of people are fortunate enough to recover and kick the habit. What happens when that dark moment comes back again? Who's there for you?
Yeah.
And that's why I want to say, we want you to be able to be there for you. If you trace back each of these stories of all these individuals with whom you've had an encounter with, I could almost, if we mapped it out on a piece of paper, we could point out each point where they could have had a chance if they were on a situation like the Chew, because we cheer the 10% who do well, right? Who are the success stories? We put them on TV, we write them up on newspapers. But what happens to the other 90%? Just like
I think one of the things too is communities, and you're talking about society as a whole, kind of like look down on people who have a substance abuse problem or whatever, and a lot of people don't even view it as a disease, but it is a disease. It's a disease of the brain. The Medical Association says it is, and one of the things that I would hope for is support from communities, and one of the things that that subcommittee that I'm on is trying to work with recovery-friendly communities, because once you're in that recovery phase, whether it be 2 months, 2 days, 2 years, whatever it is, there needs to be friendly resources.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm kind of smiling as you're bringing up that whole committee, is because for this last 4 years that I've been kind of running around with it, just family gatherings or people I meet in bar association meetings or something like that, is that in Hartford, nobody, or I should say nobody, but I'd put it this way: most people up in Hartford have been reluctant to invite me to any of these open discussions about the opioid crisis in Connecticut, because it seems to me that they don't ever want to hear this idea of the chew being introduced. In other words, the T, the tolerance, the empathy and acceptance.
I don't think they have a problem with that. I think they have a problem with supplying heroin users with heroin. I'm going to be honest with you.
No, okay, fine. If that's the sticking point, at least, however, how about opening the dialogue to saying, well, look at this one. This chief of police up in Massachusetts, I think the sample, what's his name, Italian guy, Chief Campanello, right? I mean, the opioid situation up in the Cape Cod there has gotten so bad that he's told all his officers not to arrest anybody who comes to them with all their paraphernalia and admit that they're heroin addicted. So what they would do is they would bring him into the police station, they would take all their needles and all their whatever they have and just basically destroy it and get rid of it. And then they help this person go through a rehab. They'll match him to, a recovery bed.
We have something like that in Connecticut, in Manchester, called Project Hope.
Correct. And actually, there's another town up there. I don't know if it's Windsor Locks or Suffield, another town there. Actually, I thought New London would get ahead of everybody. But yes, the chief up in Manchester. Yeah. But see, here's the sticking point to that still, though, is, okay, let's say, Manchester, let's say all 30 active heroin users up in Manchester go up to the chief this afternoon and say, Chief, we're addicted to heroin, we're turning ourselves into you. Would the chief be able to have 30 beds ready for them?
Well, it's not him getting the beds, and that's part of what I said in the last thing about the beds being full and you
correct.
And
so this is where I feel that the CHU can be sort of can meet them where they are, and that until a bed opens up, if they are sincere about getting clean, right? If of the 30,
how are you going to measure their sincerity?
Well, it's really up to them.
Okay.
But what it is when you have the 30 of them lined up, and the chief will say, okay, let's call Joe and Jane and Mary over there at these rehab centers, and they'll say, oh, we can only find a total of 5 beds today. So the other 25, what do you do with them? They go back out in the streets, and that's where I say the CHU should step in and say, while you're waiting, you can ingest heroin instead of going out in the streets. You come to us until they can find a bed, and then you go. That's all I'm saying, so that you don't die of an overdose in the bathroom at some donut shop somewhere.
Yeah, and nobody wants that.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm asking.
But I would say it would be more of a medication-assisted treatment at that point.
Whatever it is that they want. And as I said, I'm not saying that it has to be heroin. As I said, go back to that question. You ask the person, what is it that will make you stable today? Suboxone, methadone, you know what I mean? And if you say heroin, then that's on the menu of choices. That's all I'm saying. So I think we're running out of time, and it's like
I told you we could talk about this
yes,
for days.
I agreed. Just sitting here with you and having this exchange to me is already a move forward for us, 2 individuals who may not necessarily see this the same way, and I certainly will think over some of your experiences that you've shared with me. It's always an enriching experience to be able to engage somebody in a very nice dialogue.
Sylvester, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. This is great, and thank you to Wallingford for being so welcoming.
Yes, and thank you for coming to Wallingford to talk about it today, and thank you all out there for joining us in a community conversation.